In our headlines on this Friday, November 15th, here in South Korea. President Yoon Suk-yeol is in Peru for this year's APEC summit, and on the margins of this multilateral meeting, he's also scheduled to sit down with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping for bilateral trade talks as well as regional security. And in its November economic evaluation, the Finance Ministry opts for a comparatively cautious diction in describing the state of South Korea's economic direction in light of much trade uncertainty as the US prepares for a new leadership. Meanwhile, speculation is mounting about the scrapping of the $7,500 tax credit for EV purchases by the incoming Trump administration, rendering uncertain the fate of investments by South Korean car makers in the US. President Yoon Suk-yeol's diplomatic agenda in Peru includes a number of bilateral interactions with his global partners, including Chinese President Xi Jinping. Our Oh Soo-young starts us off.
President Yoon Suk-yeol will hold a bilateral summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping on Friday and set out ways to enhance trilateral cooperation with the leaders of the United States and Japan amid various geopolitical changes in recent weeks. This comes as the South Korean leader attends the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in Lima, Peru. According to Yoon's Principal Deputy National Security Advisor Kim Tae-ho, the South Korean and Chinese leaders will have their first sit-down in 2 years.
Since the Korea-Japan-China summit held in Seoul in May, both South Korea and China have expanded communication and exchanges at various levels. Tomorrow, the two leaders are expected to discuss various measures to promote economic cooperation and people-to-people exchanges between the two countries, as well as exchange in-depth views on regional situations, including the Korean Peninsula.
Also on Friday, Yoon will hold a much-anticipated trilateral summit with US President Joe Biden and Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba. The three sides will review progress on their agreements made at Camp David last year, which agreed to institutionalize their three-way cooperation on deterring North Korea's nuclear missile threat and handling security and economic challenges in the region. The leaders will meet amid concerns that the incoming Trump administration in the US may not maintain the trilateral partnership, and as tensions rise over North Korea's deployment of troops to aid Russia's war against Ukraine. A senior official told reporters in Lima that the three leaders may set out measures to preserve the Camp David framework, possibly with the launch of a trilateral secretariat. Yoon and Ishiba are also scheduled to hold a separate meeting on Saturday to discuss ways to develop bilateral relations ahead of next year's 60th anniversary of normalizing diplomatic ties. While Yoon's office is arranging a one-on-one with Biden, the official suggested a meeting with President-elect Donald Trump is likely to be difficult in the coming days, as it has been less than a fortnight after his election, and as the incoming administration is currently focusing on domestic affairs. During his 8-day trip to Latin America, Yoon will hold summits with the leaders of Peru, Vietnam, Brunei and Canada, and likely call for solidarity in curbing North Korea's military cooperation with Russia. Engaging in back-to-back diplomacy, Yoon's office says the South Korean president aims to hold bilateral meetings with around 10 world leaders at the APEC summit in Peru and the G20 conference in Brazil. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News, Lima.
And beyond bilateral interactions, President Yoon Suk-yeol is poised to partake in the multilateral APEC meeting on Friday local time in Peru. Our top office correspondent Kim Do-yeon reports.
The Asia-Pacific Economic Forum Summit starts on Friday in Lima, with President Yoon Suk-yeol taking part in the world's biggest economic cooperation body meeting. Yoon will kick things off with an unofficial discussion with all participating leaders.
President Yoon will emphasize the importance of a free and stable trade and investment environment and propose cooperative measures to reduce disparities among different social groups and promote shared benefits.
Specifically, Yoon will first note the importance of APEC's role in protecting multilateral trade, with South Korea leading calls to strengthen negotiation capacities for members. Yoon will also emphasize empowering vulnerable nations to seize opportunities, contributing to sustainable growth and enhancing AI capabilities for developing nations. And he will also use the opportunity to address North Korea issues.
President Yoon will also stress that the illegal military cooperation between North Korea and Russia poses a significant challenge to the rules-based international order and undermines APEC's forward-looking cooperation. He will strongly urge North Korea and Russia to cease their military collaboration.
Yoon will then attend the APEC Business Advisory Council lunch before heading to the APEC CEO Summit, where he will deliver a keynote speech. The CEO Summit will include a handover ceremony with the Korea Chamber of Commerce and Industry Chair and SK Group Chair, Che Tae-won, becoming the next chair. After that, Yoon will join the dinner gala hosted by the current APEC chair, Peruvian President Dina Boluarte. On the morning of the 16th, Yoon and other APEC leaders will go on a retreat where they will be able to exchange ideas in a more comfortable setting, where he will also be handed the chairmanship of APEC. He is set to receive a varayok, a rod given to leaders in the Incan culture, by the Peruvian president as part of the handover ceremony.
President Yoon will outline the direction APEC should take and emphasize Korea's responsibility and commitment to contributing as next year's host country. Notably, he will highlight Korea's leadership in advancing regional efforts to promote digital transformation for small businesses and vulnerable groups.
President Yoon will also have the opportunity to share the vision for the APEC summit next year, which will be held in Gyeongju City, Gyeongsangbuk-do Province. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Also in Peru, Foreign Minister Cho Tae-il and his U.S. counterpart Antony Blinken met on Thursday and reaffirmed concerns of a military collaboration between Pyongyang and Moscow. Highlighting the threat to regional security posed by such cooperation, the two officials pledged to monitor Russia's provision of military support to North Korea in return for the latter's deployment of troops. Blinken also forecast a smooth transition of major feats between Seoul and Washington to the incoming U.S. administration, adding that their alliance has bipartisan support. Separately, Minister Cho also sat down with his Japanese counterpart, Iwaya Takeshi, and agreed to, quote, wisely address pending issues between the two countries and to further advance their bilateral ties. North Korea's Kim Jong-un has reportedly called for mass production of suicide attack drones. According to the regime state media, the remarks were made amid an on-site inspection of drone-driven detonations. The media coverage included pictures of what is presumed to be a BMW sedan being blown up by a drone. Pundits believe such attack methods may be used in assassination attempts of South Korean individuals. Kim is said to have been satisfied with the latest demonstration and urged for a prompt full-scale production. Meanwhile, a special committee under the United Nations has shed an alarming light on Israel's campaign in Gaza, comparing its military operation there to genocide. Our Lee Jae-myung reports.
The UN Special Committee to investigate Israeli practices on Thursday released a report saying that Israel's warfare in the Gaza Strip is comparable to genocide. The report accused Israel of using starvation as a method of war, which the committee says led to mass civilian casualties and life-threatening conditions for Palestinians. It further noted that since the beginning of the conflict in Gaza, Israeli officials have publicly supported policies that prevent Palestinians from getting food, water, and fuel, the very necessities required to sustain life. The Special Committee's report also said that Palestinian civilians have been indiscriminately and disproportionately killed en masse in Gaza. It also noted the life-threatening conditions caused by Israel's warfare and restrictions on humanitarian aid. The report said such actions resulted in not just physical destruction of Gaza, but increased miscarriages and stillbirths. The committee, which was set up in 1968 to monitor the Israeli occupation, also said that Israel was operating an apartheid system in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. Since the conflict broke out in October 2023, over 43,000 Palestinians have been killed. Meanwhile, at least 15 people were killed in Israeli strikes on residential buildings in the Syrian capital of Damascus on Thursday. The Israeli military said the airstrikes targeted buildings and command centers belonging to the Palestinian Islamic Jihad armed group. A member of the armed group confirmed that several members were killed. The latest airstrike comes as Israel has been targeting infrastructures it believes are Hezbollah-related targets in Syria and Lebanon. 이승재, Arirang News.
In its latest monthly economic evaluation, the Finance Ministry opted for comparatively cautious diction in describing the state of the country's economic direction. Our business correspondent Moon Hae-ryun has details.
South Korea's economy continues to recover at a gradual pace in light of growing uncertainties due to global economic conditions and geopolitical risks. That's according to the latest Economic Greenbook, a monthly economic assessment report released by the Finance Ministry on Friday. Compared to the previous month's report, the government has shifted its assessment from a recovery trend to a gradual economic recovery, and it's the first time in 7 months that a description stating that there are signs of recovery in domestic demand has been taken out. This adjustment is seen as a reflection of the country's third-quarter GDP growth of only 0.1% and the subsequent downward revisions of South Korea's growth forecast by major institutions. Key indicators of industrial activity also showed signs of a slowdown in September. Industrial output declined by 0.2% month-on-month, and the services and construction sectors also contracted. Retail sales, an indicator of consumer spending, were down by 0.4%, despite the government's expectations for an increase due to recorded growth in credit card spending and domestic car sales, as well as the Chuseok holiday. That being said, consumer sentiment did show a slight improvement, indicating a more optimistic outlook on the current economic situation. While domestic demand has shown mixed signals, exports continue to perform well on the back of the booming auto and IT sectors. Exports increased by 4.6% in October, marking 13 consecutive months of growth. The government maintained its assessment that inflation is stabilizing as consumer prices rose by 1.3% year-on-year in October. It also emphasized uncertainties arising from global economic conditions and geopolitical risks, especially with regard to the results of the U.S. presidential election.
Given the uncertainties surrounding the new U.S. administration's pledges, it's difficult to quantify the potential effects on our economy. However, it's important to note that while there are risks, there are also opportunities.
To address these challenges, the government plans to strengthen its response system in finance, trade and industry and provide targeted support to vulnerable sectors such as construction and small businesses. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
Samsung Electronics and LG Electronics have emerged as the biggest winners of the latest CES Innovation Awards. On Thursday, the Consumer Technology Association announced the winning products as well as technologies, and Samsung secured 29 awards, including those for video display, home appliances, and mobile devices. LG Electronics, for its part, garnered a total of 24 awards. It's also the third year in a row for the LG OLED TV to clinch the top innovation title. In local politics, opposition leader Lee Jae-myung has been found guilty of election crime. The Seoul Central District Court on this Friday ruled that he had shared false information in the process of disputing corruption allegations while on the presidential campaign trail. He denied acquaintance with a man involved in a land development scandal in Seongnam during a media interview in 2021, and also reportedly made false claims during a related parliamentary audit. Accordingly, the court handed him a 1-year prison sentence suspended for 2 years. Now, should this ruling stand, he looks to lose his legislative seat and be barred from partaking in elections for 5 years. He has vowed to appeal today's verdict. In other news, the fate of the Biden administration's Inflation Reduction Act under the incoming Trump administration has been rendered bleak, as sources reportedly say plans are in the works to repeal it. Our Kim Bo-kyung has more.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's transition team is reportedly planning to end Biden's electric vehicle tax credit. This, according to the Reuters, which cited 2 sources with direct knowledge of the matter. The report says the Inflation Reduction Act, giving EV subsidies of up to $7,500 would be killed. Trump's energy policy team, led by Harold Hamm, founder of oil company Continental Resources, and Republican North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, has already met several times. Some of those meetings have taken place at Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence in Florida, where Tesla CEO Elon Musk has also spent considerable time. Though ending the EV tax credit would adversely affect the already stalling U.S. transition to electric cars, Tesla, the largest EV seller in the U.S., has reportedly expressed support for the repeal. Musk said back in July that while killing the subsidy might slightly impact Tesla's sales, it would be devastating to its competitors, suggesting it would ultimately benefit Tesla in the long term. Though he did not spell out specific policies, Trump frequently criticized Biden's EV mandate and promised to end it. The Energy Policy Transition Team reportedly believes some of Biden's clean energy policies will be tough to undo, as they are popular and the money has already started to be distributed across various states, including Republican-led ones. But it views the consumer EV credit as an easy target, believing that eliminating it would get broad support in a Republican-controlled Congress as part of a larger tax reform bill. As IRA requires the vehicles to be manufactured in the U.S. and includes certain requirements for critical minerals and battery components, Korean automakers Hyundai and Kia have few vehicles that qualify for the full IRA subsidy. But sources say since they have been investing heavily in building U.S. facilities to meet those requirements, a repeal could significantly disrupt their plans. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, South Korea has been added to the U.S. Treasury Department's monitoring list for its foreign exchange policies just a year after it was removed. In its report to the Congress on Thursday, the department included South Korea to its list of 7 countries, including China, Japan, Taiwan, Singapore, Vietnam, and Germany. Now, South Korea was excluded from the monitoring mechanism last November for the first time since April 2016. The list addresses concerns regarding potential currency manipulation. Tourism officials here in Seoul are offering foreign residents and travelers to the capital city the chance to indulge in one-day cultural activity free of charge. Our Park Ko-nu took part in one such event.
Experiencing Korean culture to the fullest for free. This is possible thanks to one-day classes taking place regularly at Seoul Cultural Lounge in Central Seoul that's been open since June this year. Here, foreigners living in or just visiting South Korea have a chance to savor their favorite type of Korean culture, from K-pop and K-beauty to traditional culture. Once a month, Seoul Cultural Lounge holds a special class, and for November, it's Taekwondo, Korea's national sport. On this day, around 20 foreigners, registered on a first-come, first-served basis, had the opportunity to learn techniques and even how to spar. I received the same uniform that's given to the participants for free as part of the one-day class. What usually takes about several weeks to master, this class allows you to be quite proficient in Taekwondo techniques that you've learned in just 1 hour. Check this out. Yup. Ha. Ha. Foreigners were able to learn more quickly thanks to the class being taught in English with the help of an interpreter.
So you get the chance to, try the sport yourself, and then it was nice to learn from an actual master, of course. Yeah, so it was fun.
It was a really good experience. I loved it. It's completely different than just visiting the country. Like we can do a total new experience, but I never did before. So.
Alongside the special classes, regular classes are also other options. Those classes include learning the latest Korean slang while watching K-dramas and movies, and coloring frames with traditional palace designs.
Like other programs where you can do art or creative things, and sometimes you have to pay a lot of money. So to get to do really cool art for free is something that I really like.
Over 8,000 foreigners from 78 countries visited this place already. They look very happy and say they will brag to their friends about their experiences after returning to their homes.
With several popular classes already underway, the Seoul Tourism Organization plans to keep opening more intriguing classes down the road. Park Ko-nu, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. US President-elect Donald Trump is finalizing his key cabinet picks, naming Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to lead the US Department of Health and Human Services on Thursday. Trump said in a statement that RFK Jr. will lead the health department to protect Americans from harmful chemicals, pollutants, pesticides, pharmaceutical products, and food additives. Kennedy is a known vaccine skeptic who currently heads the Children's Health Defense, a leading U.S. anti-vaccine group who made several widely debunked claims on the harmfulness of vaccines. Despite these claims, Kennedy said last week he would not take away anybody's vaccines. The 70-year-old had launched his own presidential bid, first as a Democratic candidate and then as an independent for this year's race, but suspended his campaign after a discussion with Trump to exchange his endorsement for a role in the president-elect's government. Trump has also publicly announced his decision to exclude JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon, former U.S. ambassador to the UN Nikki Haley, and his ex-Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. A prominent UK news firm, The Guardian, has announced that it will no longer post on any of its official editorial accounts on the social media site X. In an article published Wednesday entitled "Why The Guardian is no longer posting on X," it said that the social media platform often promoted disturbing content, including far-right conspiracy theories and racism. The article also said that it considers X a toxic media platform and that its owner, billionaire Elon Musk, has been using it to shape political discourse, suggesting that the recent US presidential election campaign serves as evidence. Musk, in response, called The Guardian irrelevant and a dying publication. On Thursday, Spain's fourth most read newspaper, La Vanguardia, also said it will stop posting on X and plans to suspend its accounts. It called the platform an echo chamber for disinformation and conspiracy theories. Moving over to Brazil, where a suicide bomber killed himself outside the country's Supreme Court in Brasilia on Wednesday when he detonated an explosive after an attempt to access the court building. 2 explosions were reported, first in a parking lot near the Supreme Court and second in front of the building where the suspect's body was found. Now, Brazilian police identified the bomber as Francisco Wanderlei Luiz, a 59-year-old locksmith who formerly had a failed run as a city council candidate in the same party as ex-president Jair Bolsonaro. Authorities suspect the target was a Supreme Court justice. Now, the blasts come just 5 days before the G20 summit in Rio, raising national security concerns. A haka was performed in New Zealand's parliament on Thursday, temporarily suspending a vote on a controversial bill that would reinterpret a treaty signed between the British Crown and over 500 indigenous Maori chiefs some 200 years ago. While vote counts were being announced, Te Pati Maori MP Hanarawiti Maipi Clark ripped up a copy of the bill and began performing the Maori dance. Now, fellow opposition MPs joined in with the haka. The bill seeks to remove a number of principles established in New Zealand's founding document, the Treaty of Waitangi, signed in 1840, which plays an essential part in upholding the indigenous Maori people's rights. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Today, spring-like warm weather continued during the day across the country. The temperature in Seoul rose up to 20 degrees Celsius, exceeding the previous year's temperature by 8 degrees. However, between late afternoon tomorrow and Sunday dawn, it will rain in the central parts of the country and the Jeollado provinces. The expected amount of rainfall is up to 30 millimeters in Gangwon-do province and up to 5 in Jeollanam-do province and the Chungcheong-do provinces. About 5 centimeters of snow could accumulate in Gangwon-do province, where temperatures are low. After this rain stops, the cold air will come down and the day will get cold rapidly. Tomorrow, Daegu and Gyeongju will start off at 12 degrees, Chuncheon 10 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 21 in Daejeon, Daegu and Gyeongju, Gwangju 22 degrees. Early next week, the first below-zero cold of this fall is expected in Seoul. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
right, those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Thank you for watching.